Why is Andrew Brunette still the head coach of the Nashville Predators? We're going to tell you why on today's Locked On Predators podcast.
You're Locked On Predators, your daily podcast on the Nashville Predators, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Happy Thursday, everybody. Welcome to the Locked On Predators podcast. Thanks so much for making us your first listen of the day. We are, of course, your free daily Nashville Predators podcast. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the #1 sports podcast network. Want to kick off our Thursday episode shouting out our Locked On Predators insiders and, of course, our everydayers who tune in to talk Nashville Predators hockey with us. I'm Ann Kimmel. I'm a writer and co-host with Penalty Box Radio, and friends, I have a Thelma to my hockey Louise.
That you do. I am Emma Lingan, and I'm an NHL reporter and host for the Hockey News.
Well, we waited, Emma. We refreshed our feeds. We frantically checked our emails. But even after a very tough loss in the second game of the Global Series and a tough start to this season, Barry Trotz has opted not to make a coaching change at this time. And it was one that seemed pretty imminent to many, if not most. So on today's show, we're going to talk about why we believe Barry Trotz has opted to stay silent on a coaching change. We're also going to discuss whether this reprieve means Andrew Brunette is going to be here for the remainder of the season. Plus, we're going to hear from Andrew Brunette and what he had to say about the noise outside the franchise as they struggle to get things on track. All right, Emma, the Nashville Predators were back at it yesterday, back on continental United States ice for their first practice after returning from Sweden. And of note, that doesn't have to do with our main topic, but I think this is of note for our listeners, Roman Josi back on the ice. Now, we did talk to Andrew Brunette after the practice and just kind of for a general update. And do you know if he will be back in the lineup on Saturday? Andrew Brunette said that he didn't know that they were going to continue to evaluate Josi. But he made it through the whole practice and participated in all the drills. So that's a step in the right direction. A step that many feel like was not in the right direction was the fact that Andrew Brunette was also on the ice running practice for the Nashville Predators as the head coach. And Emma, when we saw the schedule come out after living through 84 years of last season, we kind of said, you're going to be 20 games in when the Global Series wraps up. You've got this window. If it's going to happen, it's going to happen then. The Predators are currently 6-10-4. Andrew Brunette remains the head coach of the Nashville Predators. So Emma, why did Barry Trotz opt not to make the coaching change right now?
I think it's for a few different reasons, honestly. I mean, like you said, this break, this almost week-long break they had is the kind of mid-season break that GMs dream of if they are looking to make a personnel change. You don't get these opportunities very often with a full week to reset, before you have to play again. And just if ever there were a time to make a change, this would have been the time. So that tells me if it didn't happen this week, it's not happening this season. And I know a lot of people don't want to hear that. But again, as we've said numerous times, I don't think Andrew Brunette is the only problem here. I don't think that firing Andrew Brunette is going to solve everything. Realistically, with the problems that this team has, the fix is not going to come quickly, no matter what you do. We're in for a few years of pain here. So whether it's fire the coach, fire the GM, trade these players, it's something that's going to happen over time. And no matter what it is, the fix is not going to come as quickly as people seem to want it to. And I get that that's frustrating. But I think, when you look at Brunette and you look at Trotz, and a lot of people now want Trotz gone because he's the one who built the roster, and the roster is terrible, and that's the problem. Again, I think Barry Trotz still, it's only 2 years in. I know it feels like
Mhm.
84, but it really has not been that long. You
Yeah.
cannot evaluate a GM in totality until it's been, like, at least 4 or 5 years, I don't think. Now, I'm not saying you can't evaluate his individual decisions. He's made some bad decisions. No one You're not gonna get an argument from me about that. He's made some
Mhm.
bad decisions. But if you're talking about his fitness to be a GM, I think you have to also look at the good. I think one doesn't offset the other. He's drafted incredibly well. He has not
Yes.
the future of this organization. So I think when we really start to have the conversation about Barry Trotz and whether he should be gone, that shouldn't happen until those guys that he drafted, his guys that he brought in have made it up through the system. And then
Mhm.
they fail, then we can have that conversation. That's fine. But right now, focus is on Andrew Brunette. And I think a big part of it, of why he's still here, obviously we talk about how Trotz picked him. He's his guy,
Mhm.
picked guy. In the video that we talked about earlier in the week, the conversation between Andrew Burnett, between Barry Trotz and Kyle Dubas, where Trotz mentioned, and he's mentioned this before about, yeah, Andrew, he's a little more, I'm a little more old school than him. I would do
Mhm.
some things differently than he does. But I think that's a moment of Trotz recognizing and acknowledging where his shortcomings are and being like, let me get someone who can coach in today's NHL. And he did that. He got the coach for the team that he wants to have. But I think he supplemented that. He gave that coach the wrong roster to deal
Yes.
with right now.
Right.
Right now. So again, if it does come down to you got to make a choice between, Steven Stamkos et al. And Andrew Brunette, you got to make a choice. Quite frankly, I don't think picking Brunette would be the wrong choice for the future of this franchise because
Mhm.
before it was like, all right, we're going to try to win right now. We're going to do this. We're going to bring in these guys. We're going to add a ton of goal scoring. We're going to go for it. And that's clearly not working. So you really don't have an option now but to go the rebuild route. So that being said, if you're not going to fire the coach, which is fine. I mean, a lot of people are mad about that. I think firing a coach would have been more about sending a message than anything else. Would
100%.
have
It's
been
not a
more
problem solve tactic. It is an
no,
optics tactic.
right. And that is
Mhm.
something that I think Barry Trotz actually falls woefully short on in
Mhm.
his time as GM is his communication with the fan base. Because he is so focused on his communication with his players, with his staff, keeping it internal. I think the part of the job that he has yet to master is the communication with the fan base and
Mhm.
how he presents things and holding himself accountable to the fan base, not just the coaches and
Internal.
players.
Yeah.
And
And I
so
think
I just think that, and I'm not saying he doesn't hold himself accountable, but I'm saying he could do a better job of
Mhm.
communicating that to the fans. And so I think that now, if you're not going to make a coaching change, fine, but you've got to start making like some big changes. To me, if you're not keeping, or if you are keeping Andrew Brunette, that means you start the sell off now. You start
Mhm.
selling those veterans now. And again, this is not me saying that any of those veterans are necessarily the problem. Like, oh, you get rid of Stamkos and everything changes. I don't think that's the case either. But again, it's about optics. It's about sending a message. And that's something that Barry Trotz needs to do better as a general manager.
Yeah, I think that is such an important point for, I think, everybody watching this to realize is that this is one of those instances where you can really see the head coach experience in Barry Trotz because most general managers are very aware of the optics and care a lot about the optics. And quite frankly, when you were a head coach, and we're going to get into this a little bit later in the show, when you were a head coach, your relationship to outside noise is the exact opposite of what a general manager is. And so I do think that Barry Trotz just is not as concerned about optics I think he is very committed to success. Now, we are so taking a scenic route here, y'all. And it's not pretty. It's like middle Ohio, no offense. But, the scenic route is not pretty, nor is the scenery going to just magically be gorgeous in the next short term. But Barry Trotz is dialed in on the internal workings of being a general manager. And while we hear often from Barry Trotz, there is a lot of quantity, but I don't know that there is as much clarity as he thinks he is giving. So I do think that part of why Andrew Brunette is here is that Barry Trotz he's just not as aware or as concerned with the optics of this. I also think that there is a part of Barry Trotz that really does still believe in the process. And I don't think we have gotten the best out of this roster, but I also don't believe the best of this roster is contention. This is not a playoff roster, but there's more juice to be squeezed out of what we've got. So I think he is going to address the issues, like you said, via the roster. And he's going to save Andrew Brunette, I think, because he wants him to be around as they drive through middle Ohio. And again, I mean, no offense, lived in Ohio, but you know what I'm saying? Middle Ohio between like Cincinnati and Columbus, there ain't nothing.
Yeah.
There's just really nothing.
I think that, what it kind of comes down to is he hired Andrew Brunette about 5 years too early.
Yes, that's a great point.
And I think that he's not a bad coach. But again, it's like Barry got all excited. This is the guy I want leading my team of the future. But then he got sidetracked. He got distracted by the big shiny object that was the 18-game point streak, went out, added those veterans, brought them in, and it's just gone so poorly. And so I think it's important to point out, I don't think, a lot of, well, maybe, I don't know if people think this, but, it would be easy to look at this and think like, oh, this is about Barry's pride. He's sticking to Brunette no matter what, because he wants to be right. I don't think that's it. I mean, that might be part of it. Like, we're all human, but I think it's less about personal pride and more about, I really believe this is the right guy to lead the group that I want to have. Now, we have brought in the run. Now, if he communicates that, if Barry communicates that, if he says, I believe in this guy, but I think, but I messed up, messed up, and I gave him the wrong players, then, again, at this point, I don't know if that's really going to do anything because the damage has been done in terms of the optics with the fan base. But I think that that's, a better job of communication that could have been done, because like you said, and I know we're going to talk about this next, the way a coach deals with outside noise versus the way a general manager does, totally different. Or it should be totally different. And we're starting to see that kind of chink in Barry Trotz's armor right now.
Yeah, absolutely. Coming up, we know the question no longer is Andrew Brunette getting fired right now? Now the question kind of morphs into, how comfortable should Andrew Brunette get behind the bench? We're going to answer that coming up. Today's episode is brought to you by Monarch. Let's be honest, most of us can't name all of our financial accounts, let alone what they're worth. Between 401ks, savings, and different investments, it's so easy to lose track, and that can mean leaving money on the table. That is why I started using Monarch. It is an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or on your phone. It helps you organize your accounts, track your spending, and get a better handle on your investments without ever having to create or touch a spreadsheet. Monarch's visual dashboards and smart tools make it so much easier to understand where your money's going and how to make it work harder for you. So don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use our code LOCKEDONNHL at monarch.com for 50% off your first year. Again, check it out at monarch.com. Our code LOCKEDONNHL for half off your first year. All right, Emma, the question now has morphed from is it happening to if it's not happening now, is it happening? And I thought Elliot Friedman, in his 32 Thoughts, he had a post that he released today. He talked about Nashville and the coaching change. And I thought he had some really great insight. This is what Elliot Friedman had to say about a coaching change and the rumors swirling about Andrew Brunette. Elliot Friedman said, quote, "Not surprised Andrew Brunette survived Nashville's post-Sweden break. Mid-season changes usually come when a team shows zero pushback, and the Predators' late comeback in the first game was the exact opposite." He's referring, of course, to the first game against Pittsburgh in the Global Series. And here is what I will say. Again, we were back in the locker room, back around the players yesterday, and we have said this before, and I think there are some people that are like, think you might be reading the tea leaves wrong, but we're just telling you. And again, I say this all the time. Media, it's like we see a bikini. We see a lot, but we don't see everything. But we see a lot. We see a lot. And I don't think that this is a locker room that has quit on the process. And talking to some of the players yesterday, like they are, of course, frustrated, but they haven't quit on the process. And so I understand that there is a difference between not having success and a team just being like, well, that sucks 20 games in. But it leaves people asking the question, okay, Andrew Brunette, still a head coach. Is he going to be the head coach the rest of the season? Because again, this schedule was tailor-made for a 20-game check-in and a potential coaching change. This past week was literally the red carpet for the best case scenario for an in-season coaching change. So Emma, if not now, when? If at all, do you think Andrew Brunette could be let go? Is there a point at all this season where you think, well, here's another window where if it continues this way, Barry Trotz is gonna cut the fat, trim the fat?
No, I really don't. And I even said this at the beginning of the year. I thought Andrew Brunette survives the season. I like go back, find the receipts. I did say it, but I think that, you know, again, I come back to that's fine if that's what happens. But again, it's all about sending that message, the optics. Barry's got to start making other big changes. Big changes. I'm not talking about like, oh, look, we trade Tyson Jost. Look, see, we're mixing it up. It's like, no, like this is where you trade guys like Steven Stamkos or Jonathan Marchessault, Ryan O'Reilly. Again, like not saying that any of those guys individually is the problem, but you have to show that you are not content with the way things are going right now. And you understand that the fan base is not content with it. So I genuinely think you're not going to make a coaching change mid-season if you didn't do it just now in this beautifully served to you on a silver platter break in the middle of the season. If you're not going to do it, then don't do it. Like, honestly, at this point, I think it would make things worse to do it.
Yes, I would agree.
And yeah, I just think that if that's the route he's going to take by keeping the head coach, then you've got to start trading some assets. Like you have to, and we've heard this, we know this, he is listening on everybody. He's picking up the phone on everybody, as he should be. He is not in a situation to be turning down any phone calls. So I think that Andrew Brunette survives this season. I think a lot of this roster does not.
Yeah. Well, and I know there are a lot of people that are like, but there's the Olympic break. He could do it at the Olympic break. I agree with you. If it doesn't happen now, what that tells me is that Barry Trotz wants Andrew Brunette around for the next iteration of what is going to happen with this roster. And I would be willing to bet, I don't, because, you know, I have anxiety. But I suspect that the next iteration is going to be circle back to where we started before the offseason in 2024. This is going to be a roster that's going to have some veterans because Barry Trotz is big on veteran presence with young players. Big on that. Barry Trotz is not going to strip it down to the studs. That's not anything he has ever believed in. But you are going to see a team that is going to be much more, hopefully, youth heavy, and back to more realistic expectations of a longer term build. And at the Olympic break, is there a great time to make a coaching change? Sure. But at the Olympic break, if you are going to make a coaching change, then it's going to be a team that's like on the bubble and needs like a push or something like that. Or this is a team where like Elliot Friedman said, a team that's just quit. And that they are closer to contention than a rebuild, then maybe you do. That's just not going to be the window where Nashville is. Now, I'm not saying Nashville is going to tear it up between now and the Olympic break. I think probably I think we could see a little better, but it's not going to be beautiful. Like, it's not going to be beautiful. But I agree with you. I think it is very clear that Barry Trotz, by not firing Andrew Brunette, says, okay, we have a problem. We're going to tackle it via the roster. Elliot Friedman talked about this too, because one of the factors in all of this, whether you're talking about keeping Andrew Brunette, whether you're talking about keeping Barry Trotz in the front office, one of the big factors is the ownership group. Elliot Friedman talked about that. And he said the toughest thing with trying to read Nashville's decision-making process is that we don't have a long runway with new owner Bill Haslam. What we do know is that he went with the team on their Canadian road trip early in the season and joined them in Sweden. I've heard that it is his wish to make informed decisions about the future. He is making sure he spends up close time before committing to anything. So that does buy Barry Trotz, and I think that's smart on Haslam's part, because you know what you don't need? One more cook burning it up in the kitchen right now. You don't need that. I think that there is a little bit of breathing space for Barry Trotz to try, because ownership is like, we're new here. We're trying to figure it out.
Yeah. And I think that that's, as you said, smart on ownership's part. I have gotten so much pushback from people when I've said, yeah, Barry Trotz messed this up. Now he gets a chance to fix it. It's like, no, he doesn't. He doesn't deserve that chance. Banish him for all eternity. It's like, okay, then who is going to fix it?
Right.
You, angry person on Twitter yelling at me in my comments, you're going to fix it? Like, again, I'm not saying it's bad. I'm not saying it's not bad. I'm not defending the decisions that Trotz has made to get to this point. But I think that everybody's got to learn on the job a little bit. I mean, that's not how you want to.
It's not ideal.
But look, if nothing else, I think this entire situation brings us back to, I hope everybody has a renewed appreciation for David Poile after all of this, because listen, he caught a lot of hate towards the end of his tenure. He lost a lot of love there, but that guy knew what he was doing. Knew what he was doing. I think Barry Trotz a little bit doesn't know what he's doing. Not entirely, but it's like with certain things. Again, he got to a fork in the road 2 years ago.
Right.
He chose one path. But I think now, because he chose that path and it failed so miserably, you have no choice but to go back to the other.
You got to backtrack.
You don't have that option anymore. Like, that's the thing, is people are like, well, how can we trust he's going to fix it? Well, because he doesn't have a choice now.
There's nowhere else to go.
There's nowhere else to go. So I think that he now has to backtrack to the off season when they signed Ryan O'Reilly, Gus Nyquist, like those kind of veteran signings, that like supporting cast. Now it ended up kind of being not supporting cast, but I mean, I'm not saying that Ryan O'Reilly and Gus Nyquist are the best possible people you could bring into this team. I'm just saying that it's going to be he didn't sign Ryan O'Reilly and immediately say, this guy is going to produce, he's going to score all of our goals and he's going to, dominate the offense for us. Like they were expected to play more veteran kind of supporting roles. So I think that's where you got to backtrack. It's got to be a youth heavy roster now. And you got to throw the kids in the water and let them learn how to swim.
Yeah.
And it's not going to come quickly. It's going to be ugly. It's
Mhm.
going to be painful. But at least you'll be losing with a purpose now.
Yeah. And I think the only way, and I don't even want to put this out here, but this is what I would say to people who are like, why shouldn't we fire Barry Trotz? Like, I understand that this is off the rails, but I agree with you. He was faced with a fork in the road. He took the wrong fork. The only way that Barry Trotz could run this further in the ditch, and I want this to be something that fans can take heart from, is if he goes out and he goes, do you know what we need? We need to sign Artemi Panarin. Or I think he just signed. So like, you know what? You know what would help is we just need more veteran support for the 2 youth that we're really trying to develop. Like if that happens as the roster is adjusted, everybody, like that's going to be bad. But really there is no way except to backtrack and get back on the right path. And I think Barry Trotz realizes that. And I think Andrew Brunette was picked for that original path. And so I think that is why Barry Trotz wants to stick with him. I think new ownership is why Barry Trotz has the opportunity to stick with Andrew Brunette right now. Coming up, staying focused on the team and keeping coaching moving forward with Andrew Brunette is a challenge because, friends, there is noise everywhere. Coming up, we talked to Andrew Brunette about outside noise. We're going to tell you what he had to say about that. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. The NBA is back, and there is no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you miss the start of the game or you just want to ride that hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to those fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. This is going to keep every game that much more exciting, especially when it's your team making that late push. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. All right, Emma, again, back at practice with the Nashville Predators yesterday. And look, these guys, they are really dialed in. They are really focused, but they know. And so that was something that we wanted to kind of gauge. There is talk. We're talking about coaching changes and why that didn't happen. We're talking about roster changes. There's a ton of speculation. There's a ton of conversations about who will stay, who will go. What is Barry Trotz going to do with the veterans on this team? How do the veterans feel? All of this. Lots of that. That wasn't my Swedish chef. My Swedish chef, by the way, is so much better than that. Emma can
similar
confirm.
though. There
Similar.
were notes of Swedish chef.
I leaned into it a little bit and then I was like, pull back, Ann. It's not the time. Not the time. I missed the window. So at practice yesterday, afterward, of course, we always get an opportunity to talk with Andrew Brunette. And one of the things, whether you like his coaching or not, one of the things I will say about Andrew Brunette is that he is very good at speaking frankly. And so we asked about the outside noise and how that impacts the team and how aware they are of what is being said out here.
It's always challenging, the good and the bad. I think there's always noise circulating, and if you let it infiltrate, not too many good things happen. So I think it is a challenge. Something we got a lot of guys have been through multiple times, but yeah, noise is never good.
I love that quote. Noise is never good, because here's what's real. When things are going well, people aren't necessarily talking about it. They're just enjoying it. When things are not going well, nobody's enjoying it. And a lot of people are talking about it. And I think that is just, unfortunately, that is where we are with the Nashville Predators right now. This is a crossroads, whether you believe it needed to be addressed by coaching, whether you are waiting for it to be addressed by roster changes, front office changes. It is what it is. I do think that, and I'm going to have an article coming out at Penalty Box Radio about this, because I spoke with some of the veterans. I spoke with some of the younger, the hip, cooler, like social media savvy players on there. By the way, you're not going to find Ryan O'Reilly on social media, friends. But talked with them about the noise and how they manage that. I'm curious, Emma, like, you have been on the other side. You have been kind of internal with teams and in a different position with teams. How insulated can you really be?
I mean, it's the age of the internet, right? I think that it's impossible to be fully insulated. And I think, but that being said, and I will actually steal this from my therapist, because she's the one who taught me this about our brains, how technology has developed so much faster than our brains have. So the way that we are constantly bombarded with this constant flow of information and stimulation, our brains are not built to handle that. So like, you're presented with information and then your brain doesn't know where to put it. It's like when you're constantly seeing everything coming at you, people have access to you all the time via social media. Your brain gets this information, they get this access, and then they don't know what to do with it. And so I think that to that extent, players, they do stay off of social media. I will say, are really good about staying off of social media for the most part. But their friends and their family are on social media. They see things, they hear things, they tell the players, hey, I saw this, whatever. But I think that, it's really important to know that, at the end of the day, you got to look at where the noise is coming from, who's making the noise, why are they making the noise? Is it anything that we need to give a second thought to? Is this noise coming from someone who I respect and whose insight I would ask for if making a major life decision? If not, then maybe we don't give it that much thought. But again, there is kind of an understanding. I think a lot of it too is being in Nashville. I know people think it's bad right now, but y'all, can you imagine if this team was happening, this exact season was happening in Toronto?
In Toronto.
Like,
I mean,
the thing with Nashville on the national stage is that if things are going well, people will talk about it. If things aren't going well,
they focus on something else.
They stop talking about it. They move on to something else, because again, like, that's kind of the nature of the city. It's an entertainment town. There's so many other things to pay attention to. It's like, oh, this is not drawing our attention. Well, let's move on to something else. And so I know that, that the really rabid, passionate Predators fans don't necessarily feel that way. But again, this is nothing. This is nothing compared to what it would be like in a major media market for hockey. Now, I'm not saying that to discount it or say that it doesn't exist.
It's not a criticism. It's just an observation. Yeah.
Yes. And so for these players in a place like Nashville, it's a lot easier to block out that noise because people aren't constantly talking about it. Again, if Nashville's not doing well, then the national reporters just don't talk about them. And so I think that, like, not to the same degree, these guys, they can go to the grocery store, they can leave their houses. People here don't know who they are. Like, it's a little bit different than in a place like Toronto, like Edmonton. You can't step foot outside your house with people knowing exactly who you are. And I think that, there's a level of that to it as well.
Yeah. I remember Matthias Ekholm, when he was traded to Edmonton, one of the things that he noticed after being there was a while was people know who I am. I remember him saying, like, I go to my kids' practice and people talk to me and know who I am and they know what I do. And that's just not typical for what he was used to here in Nashville. And I think that that's just a good reminder, not just for fans, but for all of us who, like, this is our job. Like, our job is to speculate, to be a part of that noise, to, gather what we know and what we learn and put it out there. But they're just people. Like, they're people. And I always come back to this, when I first got into sports, my mentor is very big on always remember that anybody can go online and look at a person's statistics. And you can make a judgment based on what they do, a lot of times based on statistics. But what matters is who they are, and I'm not making excuses. I'm not saying this product is okay, because aren't they a nice group of guys? First of all, they are really a nice group of guys, but it is frustrating. And this is a fan base that really, especially because we were promised, we expected. We weren't promised. Let's be clear. We weren't promised, but we expected. Yes. And not unfounded. These were not unfounded expectations, just based on wishful thinking of that Nashville Predators fan base. National media believed that Nashville was contention. They were a team that was closer to contention. So the disappointment, the disparity between expectation and reality is a chasm of pain. And I get that. I get that.
And I think, just to double down on what you said, our job is to make informed speculation. You can, like you said, anyone on the internet, any national reporter. Now, I'm leaving Elliot out of this. Elliot is a lot more plugged in to the inner workings than most national reporters.
Agree.
But people who are wondering, I'm wondering if Barry Trotz will consider stepping back behind the bench. I'm wondering if Steven Stamkos wants out. Again, those are all fair things to wonder based on what's happening here. But as a fan, be careful who you listen to. Be careful whose opinions you trust in this. And not saying that those opinions aren't valid, but I'm saying that make sure you draw that line between speculation and informed speculation.
Yeah. Because
it's very, very different. I think it's kind of a lazy take if you're looking at Nashville from the outside and saying like, well, I bet Steven Stamkos wants out. I bet Andrew Brunette is going to get fired, and I bet Barry Trotz is gonna coach again. Like, all lazy, easy takes that anyone could formulate because they're on the outside looking at. So I'm not saying trust us, like everything we say is dogma. I'm just saying that there is a difference between speculation and informed speculation.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think there is a lot to wonder about. Like, we know this cannot keep, like, we can't keep doing this.
No.
So I do wonder about what will happen next. And I think that that is valid, but verb choice matters. Like, I wonder about a lot of things. Like, I wonder about that elf on a shelf. Like, how do more kids not have nightmares about that? And how does that even work? I've got a lot of things I wonder about. But just check verb choice. Just check verb choice. Wonder. We all are wondering what is next. One thing we are not wondering about, who is the head coach of the Nashville Predators? And that is Andrew Brunette. Andrew Brunette will be behind the bench when the Predators get back to action Saturday against Colorado, the best team in the league, on tomorrow's show. Emma and I are going to take a deep breath. We are going to preview that game for you, and we're going to share some news about the Locked On Predators podcast. We will be back tomorrow with an all-new episode. We will see you then.